Welcome to The Week Ahead, a podcast by SBM Intelligence. I'm your host, Veronica Pana Igbe. Every Friday, we explore stories that are shaping our continent. The Nigerian Economic Summit Group has warned that excessive pre-election spending could threaten Nigeria's economic stability, urging greater fiscal discipline ahead of the 2027 elections. How can Nigeria control election-related spending? A fake agency coordinator has reportedly issued a letter falsely claiming to represent a government agency, raising concern about impersonation and fake official communications. How can agencies prevent such impersonation? Tanzania's vice president has resigned, raising questions about the reasons for the decision and its impact on the country's political stability. What could this mean for Tanzania's government? Joining us today for further insight is David Olujimi. Welcome, David, to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Veronica.
It's always a pleasure. Let's start with our first story. I mean, we know that the next general elections are coming up in 2027. But we're having the Nigerian Economic Summit Group issue a warning as and stating that the excess pre-election spending could threaten Nigeria's economic stability. And they are urging political parties, politicians who are coming up for office to be more disciplined in their spending ahead of the 2027 elections. Why, I mean, what are the facts? What does the report state? And how can Nigeria control its election spending? Because I mean, we know that election season is about, campaigns also, need money. And there are a lot of funds that are raised for election campaigns. As the campaign season has been opened, we're going to see a lot of money go into the economy. So, what effect is this going to have on the economy, as stated by the Nigeria Economic Summit Group? How can politicians restrict their spending, and how can Nigeria as a government ensure that not a lot of money goes into elections?
Okay, so first things first is understanding the reason why NESG is making this claim, why they are making this cry out now. The reason is because of the potential impact of massive spending on inflation. So they are envisioning a situation in which trillions of naira will be spent. And when trillions of naira goes into the economy in such a short period of time, in such a very short period of time, it's going to spike cash flow. Basically, money supply is going to go up, and inadvertently, we would see inflation go up, and the cost of goods and services basically go up, and overall affects the reforms in that sense. But here's some of the facts are the facts now some of the facts are Electoral Act 2026 has pegged campaign spending at certain levels. One, it pegs campaign spending for the presidential candidates at 10 billion. For the states, it pegged it at 3 billion. Then for the National Assembly, which is the Senate and the House of Reps, the campaign spending is pegged at 500 million. Then for the State House of Assembly, campaign spending is pegged at 100 million naira. The point here is that while INEC is, while the Electoral Act contains provisions to sort of cap campaign spending, the reality is that there's a laissez-faire attitude to it. Plus, the language of the law is actually very funny. The language of the law is very funny. The language of the provision in the act is very funny. The provision says that presidential candidates says nothing about parties, and it also pegs the donation that an individual can make to to an election to a candidate in an election, priced at 500 million naira. That means nobody should donate more than 500 million to a candidate. How about to the party? How about to the various agencies that the party will set up? We are seeing APC set up an entire campaign council, and this entire just the setting up of the campaign council is warranting newspaper ads alone. You can imagine a situation where the fact that newspaper campaign council just was set up, over 300 people involved, and it's warranting buying newspaper ads. Just on the newspaper ads alone, we've already seen over 100 million being spent because the chairman of the campaign council is going to have his name appearing at least 10 national dailies, the vice chairman, the DG of whatever committee in the. So we have situations like this where we just have like buzzwords. That's the way I put it. Campaign spending cap is a buzzword at the moment. The Electoral Act does not cater to it at all. It tries to cater to it, but the reality of it is that it doesn't cater to it because while you are trying to cap campaign spending for the candidates, you are not capping campaign spending for the parties themselves. So there is no, we've not gotten a solution yet. And that's another problem with all of it is one of the big problems with all of it is the massive amount of money that goes into the economy. Like I mentioned earlier, according to Davido, who was making a statement to News Central, he said 110 billion was spent by one party on the Osun State general elections. One party, 110 billion. I can imagine what his own uncle's party spent on that election. Basically, we're envisioning a situation where people spent in roughly 120, 30 billion naira on one state election. Now do it on a broader scale, on a larger scale, and try to rationalize how much will be spent in the presidential election. The presidential election is there. We have 19 candidates. Then we have 127 governorship candidates cut across different parties for 27 state governorship elections. I don't know the thousands of we now have thousands of candidates for the National Assembly and the State Houses of Assembly. The point is, when you even do the figure, do the mathematics, the CBN, sorry, the law is capping it at 571 billion. 571 billion is not what CBN was looking at when CBN said that they are introducing a non-treasury cash reserve ratio. So, as part of efforts to try to sort of cap campaign spending and government spending close to election period, the CBN also introduced a um, non-treasury cash reserve ratio. What that means is that every government spending from all the states as well as the MDAs that it's outside the treasury single account, all of their money that are in other bank accounts outside the treasury single account, 70% of it should be reserved we should be reserved in the banks. Well, that's what the CBN was trying to say. So basically, the situation that even the CBN is now actively looking at it that the amount of money they are looking to spend, that they are looking and envisioning that people are going to spend in 2027 is probably going to push the bar, push money supply to dangerous levels. And so it's a thing that we probably will just be sitting ducks because politicians will politic. We probably will just be sitting ducks. That's all I can say. Thank you.
I mean, you're right, David, because like if that amount of money was pumped in for the Ocean elections, and then now we're going to have presidential elections, and we're also going to have um governorship elections, State House of Assembly, the National Assembly as
Yeah,
well. It's a lot of money that is going to be pumped into the economy. And having that money pumped at once, I do agree that, that can cause some problems and destabilize the economy as well. Let's move over to
yeah,
our second story where we're seeing, I mean, we've been seeing Um, I don't know whether I should call it rise of fake agencies in Nigeria. I mean, it's really alarming that we're seeing. I mean, when we had the first one, it was like, okay, maybe this is one. We don't know how it got there. We don't know how they got on the budget. Now we see more are coming up, and the president has ordered for the arrest. But now we're also seeing a pushback from the individual saying, we have our appointment letters. Here is our appointment letters, publishing their appointment letters to kind of show the validity of their agency, quote and unquote, if I may, if I may say that. But
Yeah,
what I mean, so now we have this problem, this challenge on our hands. I mean, the government is taking steps to say, you know what? The ICPC should take charge, other agencies should take charge. But my problem is, how do we stop and ensure that this doesn't happen again? Why are we having fake?
and
Why are we even having something as a fake agency, right? An
so
appointment
the first,
letters given, authenticate. I mean, how do we authenticate it? Who are the perpetrators? Do we know? I mean, it's not necessarily getting just the heads of the agencies. There's no way that there are not other people involved in this, honestly.
yeah. So the first things first is getting like an understanding of the background behind this. The the concept of the fake agencies, these agencies are not fake in the sense of them. It's just that when you have a government where when you have a government where you have around 10,000 agencies, 10,000 agencies under the purview of different ministries. We have different projects, we have different offices, we have different committees, different commissions, around 10,000 of them. There is a very high likelihood that some of them will skip the, some of them will skip the attention of the president. Now, yes, some of the issues. Nigeria has an over bloated federal civil service in that sense. Very over bloated federal civil service. We keep creating new stuff, new projects, new offices. So, like taking this for example, Made in Nigeria Special Projects Office. The Made in Nigeria Special Projects Office is not fake because it was created by some presidencies some many years ago. However, maybe at the time it was not created by any action of Parliament or the National Assembly. There was no there's a word we use for it when you create an agency. You want to create an agency. There has to be a guiding law. There has to be a guiding regulation for the creation of the agency. So we have multiple of these agencies cut across the country that are now escaping the purview of the president. What is happening is that in some of these offices, like the office of the Secretary General of the Federation, Secretary General of the Federation is more of a political appointment. However, his role is more of an administrative role. So even if you choose your friend and you make them the Secretary General of the Federation, they have to do the administrative duty that is assigned to them. It's the reason why you discover that most of our Secretary General of the Federation is now that we are having politically savvy people in those positions quite a number of times. They used to just have like regular civil servants, just your average Joe, basically people who know how to run stuff. So what is happening now is that some of the people who have worked in these offices, like the office of the Secretary of the Federation, have worked there for decades. Some have probably been there since the days of Obasanjo. They know the ins and outs. They know everything. They have an idea of different agencies, different offices that were created, and different positions and portfolios that have been made by different um, presidents over time. And the thing with it is that if there is no law, if you create something by law and you don't make a law, or you create a committee, or you create an by executive order, you create something and you don't rescind it before you leave, you don't end it. There has to be a start date and an ending date. For example, now we have the Presidential Tax Reform Committee set up in 2024. Some years, that's like 2 years now. Taiwo Oyedele has moved from that committee to become the Minister of Finance. But now here is a possibility that can come up in the future. In 2031, anybody can come into power and say they are stepping into that office. Why? Because the government has not officially counseled the committee and ended its work. These are some of the issues that we have in our kind of in our kind of governmental system, especially in the federal civil service. These are basically administrative or bureaucratic issues. These are procedural issues, basically systemic issues in that sense. These are systemic issues that are now rearing their heads. So the other guy who came up, the presidential something foreign intervention committee, he stepped into a legitimate office that was created by one president many years ago. I think created by President Buhari. Made in Nigeria Special Projects Office stepped into the office that was created by also by President Buhari. So we have a lot of these duplications, duplicitous organizations that were legitimately created by different presidents but never shut down. And the people who are in these offices who basically deal with the paperwork of these agencies, they are the ones who have to deal with the paperwork, take their budget. Basically, the administrative roles that are involved with creating these agencies, ensuring that they are run and they are managed. There are some people who have done it in the past, and they know the loopholes. Basically, they exploit these loopholes. That's what they've learned how to do: exploit the loopholes and have their friends, their cronies come into those spaces and take it over. The reason why we are now starting to see some of them is because in some cases, the president is maybe not aware. The president is maybe not aware, or the people in ICPC, like in the case of this Made in Nigeria Special Projects Office, it's a discovery of ICPC, and I'm very certain this is not the only one. I'm certain there are tons and tons and tons of them like that nobody may be paying attention to, or some things are going on in the background. Just keep them under wraps. Now, here's how everything works. Everything works in the sense that if you are able to get into those spaces, your job now is to create a budget. Find a way of getting into the budget, and you'll be fine. Find a way of getting into the budget. There's a lot of, there's a whole, is like a red tape agency. That's the way the civil service structure works, especially in the federal government. There are a lot of red tapes. Ministers are signing things that they are not even reading. Sometimes they have it like an auto pen. They have people who just help them sign. And they are signing things that sometimes they are not even reading it. They are not even concerned. So somebody comes and they just sign anything. And before you know it, government money is getting into the hands of sinister individuals under using very legitimate covers. So first things first, for Nigeria to fix this problem, implement the Steve Orosanye report. The Steve Orosanye report was the report that recommended that half of the agencies in this federal government be scrapped. There's just too much of them, just too much. One president being in charge of over 10,000 agencies in a country like Nigeria, it's not doesn't make any sense. It is over bloating the cost of governance by a very, very high margin. It's about bloating the cost of governance. Just imagine what happened with the presidential for that PFI whatever the first fake agency getting 1.4 billion in the budget. It sounds small, but when you do that figure over 20 maybe fake agencies, because the people who put 1.4 billion for that agency in the budget, they probably looked at it that in the grand scheme of things, in a budget of 68 trillion naira, 1.4 billion is nothing. So they probably looked at it and say, oh, okay, that was the 2025 budget. So I think that was about That was about 30 something trillion. You probably look at it and say it doesn't have any. But when you begin to multiply it by the scale of the different sort of on sort of questionable duplicitous weird agencies that are laden in the budget or leading operating from the federal secretariat, discover that we're wasting money that we don't have. We are spending and wasting money that we don't have. I think the time has come for Nigeria to do like a very broad federal civil service reform. The time has come. Some of these agencies need to go. They are too much. They are just too much. And people are hiding under the cover of, and the president sometimes doesn't even know. The people who work like the secretary of the federation, the secretary general of the federation, he doesn't even know because he is not. He is limited by what he can know. It's what they tell him he will know. That's even for the secretary of the federation. Is what they tell him he would know. So there's a lot of what we are seeing. We're just seeing a small piece of the number. If you start to read the kind of agencies that exist in Nigeria, you will be surprised at what are the duties and responsibilities of some of these agencies. In this country, we still have a biotechnology agency. Now, go check it. What have they done? What are they doing? How, like, what do they do? Ajakuta Steel Company still pays staff till today. They pay staff in their hundreds. I'm talking of hundreds of staff that they pay, that they promote, and they when they implement new minimum wage or implement new salary structure, they still pay them. It's the same thing with Warri Refinery, Port Harcourt Refinery, Kaduna Refinery that have not functioned for the past 30 years. They pay their staff and they pay them in millions of naira. Those are even for agencies, those are even for organizations or entities that we know. Now imagine in the area, say like road building. There's one called Road Building Research Agency. There's so much that just is bloating the civil service and making things like this very possible. Yeah,
I I mean, I do agree with you that I mean, Nigeria needs to implement the certain report. Also needs to like have like an audit of government agencies, and a strategy for preventing it, as you mentioned earlier, is to ensure that once a commission or a committee finishes or ends its mandate, is to ensure that they shut it down properly to avoid I mean this kind of
it's kind of embarrassing
cases,
situation.
yeah. Cases where a lot of people would exploit, those lacunas, quiet lacunas. Let's quickly move on to our final story. We move to East Africa, Tanzania, where we have seen the vice president resign. Um, Why is the vice president resigning? I mean, in African nations, you hardly see government officials resign. So once you see one resigning, then you know that there's really, really a serious reason for resigning. And what would this mean for Tanzania and the government and the political stability in the country? Do you think it's going to have like an effect, or do you think it's going to be a no issue? They're going to have a replacement and everything will move smoothly.
So I think the issue in Tanzania is becoming a very a very sort of worrisome in East Africa in the sense that after their former president died, that's Magufuli, his vice president, she stepped up, became the president, and in a twist of events, while she stepped up and became president in what was regarded as in a very pleasant, unprecedented fashion. The first female president in the country, and I think she was also the first president from her side of the country. I'm not certain now, I'm not very particular. But she's become quite a bit of a she's become quite a bit of she's very She's very repressive. There's a lot of repression of dissenting voices. The country did an election last year, and in that election, that was, I think, in November, December. I think that was in November, October rather. Uh, Almost 1,000 people died because of government crackdown on protesters, and it was terrible. It was quite hard. Since then, Tanzania has been under a very, very repressive regime. So it's a situation where political pressure is mounting on her. The image of the country is not in the best shape right now. It's not in the best shape. And it's quite normal that when things like this start to happen, people who are linked with the politicians, some of them would want to try to save their heads. So the vice president has said he's resigning from active politics. But one thing that we can say and know is that he's trying to separate himself from whatever is happening with the Samia Suluhu regime or administration. He's trying to distance himself. He's just 54, so if he started his journey in politics, I'm sure he still has a lot of time. No matter how long she'll probably will be on the throne. I think I know there are term limits in Tanzania. So the the issue now is that nobody knows the exact. There is no detail to the exact cause or the reason behind their fallout, but there was a fallout. His resignation was not due to it was there was a fallout between him and the president, and one thing that we can say is that the government in Tanzania right now has been brutally cracking down on opposition parties. So I think she's trying to take a cue from what's going on in Rwanda, where Paul Kagame basically is the established political leader. There's nobody who dares contests against him in an election. If you contest against him, then you probably be arrested in Rwanda and then locked up. Many things what happen in Rwanda that are very anti-democratic. So I think the Tanzanian president is also trying to take a cue from what goes on in Rwanda, but she cannot implement it fully because Tanzania has a longer democratic history. And but for the overall look of the country, it's also telling on the overall look of Tanzania because Tanzania right now is now at a spot where I think the Tanzanian economy is now even smaller than what we have in Uganda. Please just give me a second. Let me confirm something. Okay, no, it's still bigger than Uganda, but But Tanzania used to be like a much more prominent country, at least way under the former president. This is a country that consists of Zanzibar and Tanganyika. This is a country that has been known for its wildlife, its tourism sector, and all of that. But what's going on right now is not helping the image of that country. And even though it's quite sad, but you can only hope that things get better there and the country can get its politics right. So politics can really mess a lot of things up. That's one thing about this world. It can really mess a lot of things up. And what I'm saying there is it's a reflection of how politics can. But one thing we can say is that one thing I can say is that the vice president is trying to distance himself from what's going on now. Now adding to further further on what we are seeing there, I'm seeing that the ruling party has now decided to suspend the vice president. But here's the thing: he has also already resigned from the party. But now they are saying they are suspending him for in quotes, indiscipline. They say they are suspending. The party says they are suspending him for in quotes indiscipline, and the source of he said his indiscipline is following his decision to resign. He's following his decision to resign. But what's there is that they are Tanzania right now is in need of some uh they're in need of some changes. Especially okay, they need of some changes, especially with regards to the very anti-democratic system that they are practicing right now. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you very much,
I'm
David,
done.
for joining us on this episode. It's really been insightful discussing the three stories today. It's always a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
To all our listeners, this podcast is by SBM Intelligence. You can access our podcast by searching for SBM Intelligence anywhere you find podcasts. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, like, share, and let us know your thoughts in the comment sections about the three stories that we had discussed today. For deeper insight into our work, you can visit our website at sbmintel.com. Remember to connect with us on all our social media platforms. You can find us on X, Facebook, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn at SBM Intelligence. Thank you for tuning into the week ahead. Join us next Friday for more updates shaping the African continent.